You want to pass your driving test first time. Well, there's things that you need to know and there's things that you need to bring with you on the day. First, let's talk about the things you need to know so that you know if you can check off all of these boxes and skills, you'll be ready to pass your driving test, which should give you more confidence. The first skill that you need to know to be able to pass your driving test is moving off and stopping. If you can do all of these skills successfully and more importantly, independently, then you might be ready for your driving test. On your driving test, you're going to move off and stop next to the curb 4 to 6 times. It's not a mistake. The examiner's not telling you that you've done anything wrong. It's part of the procedure. They want to see how you park and how you pull away again. So randomly along your driving test, you're going to be asked to pull over and then just drive away again. The next skill is mirrors. Are you using your mirrors effectively and are you using them at the right time? Your examiner has 3 boxes to do with mirrors on their marking sheet. Number 1 is mirrors before you signal. Number 2 is mirrors before you change direction. And number 3 is mirrors every time you change speed. Make sure that you're hitting those every single time and you've practiced that so that you can give the examiner the safety checks that they need to make them feel safe and give you a driving license. The next skill is signaling. Are you signaling at the right time? Are you signaling in the right places? And are you signaling effectively so that you can communicate to all of the other road users your intentions? Make sure that your signals are clear and well timed. The next skill is anticipation and planning. Are you planning what's happening next on the road? Are you treating the road like a game of chess where you're not just thinking 1 step ahead, you're thinking 5 or 6 steps ahead? As in, I'm not looking at the car in front for my information. I'm looking 5, 10 cars ahead in traffic to know when they're braking because that will eventually ripple back to me. And make sure you're planning not just what's happening next, make sure you plan what's happening way ahead of you on the road. That helps you be safer and much smoother. The next skill is speed, and it's not just about spotting speed signs on the road so you know what the maximum limit of that road is. It's also about understanding the fact that you can't always drive at the maximum speed for that road. Are you demonstrating an understanding of the changing levels of hazard on the road? If the road becomes tighter, your speed needs to drop. If the road becomes wider, there's less pedestrians on the road and less cars, meaning that the level of hazard has dropped, but you don't speed up from a reduced speed. You're demonstrating that you haven't understood that the level of hazard has changed and reflected that in the speed that you're driving at. The next skill that you need to demonstrate is how you deal with other road users. Quite a lot of faults on driving tests can be boiled down to you didn't deal with what was ahead of you on the road effectively. So think back to your lessons. This isn't one to be stressed about. Think back to your lessons. Do I deal with other road users effectively? And 101 different things could pop up on your driving test that you need to deal with. The combinations of different possibilities on your driving test are limitless. But when you're on your driving lessons, do you normally drive well? Do you normally deal with whatever's ahead of you effectively and safely? Because if you can do it on a driving lesson without thinking too much, you can do it on your driving test as well. The next skill that we need to be proficient at is junctions, T-junctions and crossroads. Do you deal with them effectively on lessons? Do you deal with them when they're busy and quiet? Do you deal with them when they're major to minor and minor to major? Do you have your junction procedure nailed down? Mirror, signal, position, speed, look. If you do, you can check that one. The next skill we're going to talk about is roundabouts. This causes some anxiety sometimes, so practice it lots on lessons. When you deal with roundabouts on lessons, do you understand what's happening? Do you understand how to take them from any direction and go on any exit? We're talking about mini roundabouts, spiral roundabouts, every type of roundabout. Can you confidently navigate a roundabout without your instructor having to jump in? Once you've passed your driving test, are you going to still be able to drive around these roundabouts confidently without any dramas? That's what the driving test is for. Are you going to be safe on your own? If you can confidently answer yes to that, then you might be ready for your driving test. The next skill is pedestrian crossings. We need to understand pedestrian crossings. We need to know that we can't stop on them. We need to plan and anticipate for them coming up. If they're a traffic light crossing, plan and anticipate that they might turn red, so be ready to stop. If it's a zebra crossing, plan for it, scan the pavements. If anybody's getting closer, we slow down. Do you get pedestrian crossings right when you're on your lessons? Chances are you'll get them right too on your driving test. Next one, dual carriageways, but not all driving test centres have a dual carriageway nearby. Not the fast ones that I'm thinking of. A dual carriageway is where the oncoming traffic is separated from you by a central reservation, something physical. It could be grass, it could be concrete, it could be an actual barrier. Not all dual carriageways are fast roads. Some of them might be 30 or even 20 miles an hour. But can you do dual carriageways confidently and independently. If you're unlucky enough to have your driving test somewhere where there's a really fast dual carriageway with a slip road to get on and off, you need to be proficient and be able to deal with that on your own. But don't worry, it's not unfair, because if you have one close by, it means you'll have practiced on it, and they're very similar to motorways, slip roads on and slip roads off. So you're probably in a better position once you pass your driving test than someone who doesn't have that kind of road. Next, and this is one of my favorite ones, maneuvers. You need to be able to do all of the maneuvers, not necessarily first time, not necessarily perfectly, but you need to be able to do them safely. This is something that I notice a lot on mock tests. People are focusing on doing the parking maneuver perfectly and not focusing on what we really need to see on the driving test, which is perfect observation. If you mess up your maneuver, no one's going to mind. But if you forget to look and check and keep people safe, that's going to be game over. Remember, you can correct a maneuver, no problem. But once you've finished and you didn't check behind you, you can't correct that or go back and get it right again. Next skill, one of my absolute faves, the emergency stop. I know for some reason that a lot of people miss this. Before they go for their driving test, I've heard too many stories where people haven't actually practiced and learnt the emergency stop. It's not very difficult. It takes probably 20 minutes on your driving lesson to go through it. But make sure you remind your instructor to go through it with you if you're getting close to your test and you haven't done so already. The next skill is different road conditions. Have you driven in rain? Have you driven in bright sun? Do you know how to use your sun visor? You should do, because anything could happen on your driving test. And if you've never driven in rain and you're not confident about how to turn on the window wipers, you're going to have a problem on your driving test when you're trying to focus on the road and where the window wipers are isn't second nature. That's going to be distracting. So make sure that you practice or at least emulate bad weather conditions so that when you're on your driving test or even driving alone, you don't have to pull over or think too much to be able to clear your windscreen to keep driving safely.
Please hold the line. You are next in line. Thank you. Your call is important to us.
The last skill that you need to know to pass your driving test is independent driving. You need to be able to follow a sat-nav for your driving test because it's going to be 2/3 of your entire test. The driving test uses a sat-nav called a TomTom Start 52. Some instructors have one, which is great because it means that you've practiced on the same system that they're going to use, which means that you're going to have familiarity. When the sat-nav says something, it's going to be familiar, it's going to feel like you've done this before, which is definitely going to make you feel better. Some instructors use other systems like Google Maps, which is great that you've practiced on the sat-nav, but then again, you won't have that familiarity when you actually come to your driving test and the examiner puts that different sat-nav, which talks to you differently and looks differently, up in front of you. If you've never practiced sat-navs at all, you definitely need to before your driving test. It's very different, it works differently, and it directs you very differently to how an examiner would do. Also, in terms of independent driving, you need to know how to read road signs. It's not difficult and it's not hard, but 1 in 5 driving tests, instead of following a sat-nav, will follow road signs for 20 minutes. So if you have never done that, you definitely need to practice that before your driving test. Don't turn up and have never done that. Okay, we've been through the skills that you need to have to pass your driving test. Now let's go through the things that you need to bring to be able to take your driving test. If you're coming with a driving instructor, they'll have the car sorted. Everything should be fine. But if you're not, and you're coming with your mum, dad, friends or family in your own car, this bit's going to be very important. But at the end, there's still things that you need to bring, even if you're coming with a driving instructor. So if this is your own car, the first thing you need to bring is an interior mirror for the driving examiner. These are about £7 in Halfords. They pop on the windscreen and let the examiner see behind so that they can see what you see. If you're not sure how to fit this, don't worry, just pop it on the passenger seat and the examiner will fit it how they like it. The next thing that you need to bring, really important, is L plates. I would advise, if you've got magnetic L plates, bring a spare set. If the L plates fly off on the way to the test centre, even one of them, then you won't be able to take your driving test unless you refit a new set of L plates. One needs to go on the front, clearly visible to car users or road users in front of you, and one needs to go on the back, exactly the same, clearly visible to anyone behind you. The next thing that you need, if you're bringing your own car, is you need to be insured to drive it as a learner. The examiners can do on their iPad certain checks on your car. It needs to have an MOT, it needs to be taxed right now, and you need to be insured to drive it. If the examiner decides to do checks on your car and you've only recently insured it, it might not show up on the insurance database. So it's a good idea to have the paper insurance with you, but most proof of insurance nowadays is by email, so if you've just got that on your phone and you can bring it up quickly, then that's fine too. The next thing isn't something that you necessarily need to bring, but if it is your own car, then turn up and make a good first impression, clean out your car. Make sure that the interior is clean. You want the examiner to sit somewhere that they're comfortable and aren't feeling grossed out in, and cleaning the outside is also extremely helpful. But what does everyone need to bring to their driving test? Whether you're coming with a driving instructor or friends or family, you need to bring your driving license. You wouldn't believe the amount of times I've said to someone, have you got your driving license on you? And they say, oh yeah. And it's their driving test day. You don't need to bring your theory pass certificate anymore. That used to be a thing, but if you check your email of the things that they ask you to bring, there's only 2 things on that list. One of them is a car, and the other one is your driving license. You absolutely cannot, under any circumstances, use any other ID. Passport is a no-go. Yes, you can prove who you are, but they need to see your driving license before you take your driving test. And a photocopy or a picture of it will not work either. Hope you found this video helpful. If you've got any more questions about your driving test or what to do or what to bring, put them in the comments. And YouTube thinks that you'll also find this video mega helpful to prepare you for your driving test. Check it out. See you in the next one. Peace. Bye.